Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel Watercolor Impressions. I did a gouache painting 2 weeks ago and people seem to enjoy it, so I thought I will do another gouache painting for you guys. Before we go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. If you want to support me some other way, hit the super thanks button so that I can make videos every week like this for you guys. And let's get started, guys. Let's jump into the painting right away. So I'm starting with the sky first. So I'm using a light wash. So I'm using kind of like a pale blue. I usually go with cobalt blue if I'm using watercolors. The gouache I'm using, it comes with this pale blue. I thought it would be a nice blue for the evening, so I kind of used it. So at the bottom I'm using burnt amber, and they also have this chocolate color. I don't know what it's called. Maybe it's a raw amber. So I'm mixing it in the distance. So then I jumped onto the foreground building because I want to connect the shapes from the background to the foreground. So you could, when you start with gouache, you could paint two ways. You could start with a darker pigment, or you can start with a lighter pigment. When I started painting in gouache, I treat it as a watercolor, and it's also easy medium to control as well, because you can paint over it and the values stick pretty good, and you can also go lower on the value even when you go darker. Whereas in watercolors, if you go darker, it's really hard to get the highlights back until you're using a little bit of gouache on it to get some highlights back. So in gouache, that's a really good thing about it. You can erase it, and you can also take a tissue paper and take away the paint, and you can also blend two colors just by using a water and a brush. So being said that, you can see my color palette, and one side of the spectrum I'm having a lot of cool colors. In other side of the spectrum I have a lot of warmer colors. I use it whenever the painting requires the cool colors on the other side, and whenever I need warm colors, I'll be focusing on that side. And you can also see this gouache shed, what I'm using is a Chinese brand gouache color, and it does comes with a lot of color palette in it. It comes with almost 50 colors in it. So you can see in the picture, this is the brand I'm using, and if you want, you can buy it online. You can also buy it from AliExpress as well. And this is a cheaper gouache paint I found through my girlfriend, so it kind of really worked for me, and it also comes with a large quantity as well. So let's focus on the painting now. So whenever I paint, I treat gouache, as I said, I'm going to say this again and again, I'm going to treat this as a watercolor than a gouache painting, because I don't see painting, I'm really comfortable with watercolors, so that's how I paint, and that's not the only way to paint something. If you prefer working from darker tone to the lighter tone, so be it, and you can do that as well. And even if I use oil medium, I think I will do the exact same thing, but it's up to the artist's preference, and at the end of the day, you're getting whatever you require, and you're capturing the mood and the details in your painting. So being said that, so you could see I almost put the colors wherever my shapes are. You could see in the reference there's a lot of things happening there. There's thousands of things on lighting and thousands of windows. Everything is happening, and if you try to paint it as it is, it's gonna look boring, and it's gonna take forever to finish a painting. But as a impressionist, I paint everything as an impressions, because I can't paint each individual details and work on a painting for hours. Again, it's up to artist preference. It's not the only way to do stuff. So whenever I'm doing any moody painting or any evening painting, I try to push stuff far away from the distance. I like to create depth in my painting. So you could see I put like a lot of warm colors using cadmium yellow, and there's a lot of yellows in my palette, as you could see. And I'm using the spectrum which is on the top left, and there's like 4 yellowish variations I have, so I mix with it. I don't know the exact colors or name for it, but you could see in the palette picture, you can see the colors are there. So now I'm focusing on the darker tone, and in reality it looks darker, and I want to create the darker tone as well. So for the darker pigments, I'm using burnt amber and a little bit of cadmium orange, and I'm just mixing that colors and doing it. So I also focused on the sharp boards using the bluish colors. Even though if it gets lighter, I'll go and glaze over it and make it darker. If it goes darker, I can also go over it and make it lighter. So at this point, when I was doing it, I thought I lost this painting. I have no clue what I'm doing in my painting. but I keep going. So there are times when you paint. This happened to me when I started painting in the early stages of my painting. So when I started painting, I'll be painting confidently. At one point, I feel like I lost the painting, and it looks really bad. I was about to say shit, but I don't want to say it. It looks really bad, so I don't want to continue the painting. But I never persevere from that point. But at one point, I persevered from my painting. I kept going, and had a little bit of faith that something will come out of this. When I started doing that, something magically happened. All my paintings got really good. I got better at each and every painting I did. Being said that, sometimes I do that, and I learned this from my favorite artist. He always says, don't compare your painting to the reference or what it's in front of you. You're always going to lose, and you're going to lose faith on your painting, and you not want to paint again. So I always do that. Once I finish my painting, I put it away. I don't see it for the next day. Once I see it the next day, the sum of the magic, what you did, comes out eventually. So I started with the figure now. For the figure, I want to create that red person who is walking in the foreground. I want to make sure that I'm creating a really strong statement, so that all the focal point, when a viewer see this painting, it goes to that red person who is there. And I'm going to create a contrast using a lot of reflections as well as a lot of bright light reflecting on the ground. So now I'm focusing on the foreground building. I'm going to do it as dark as possible because I want this building to come forward. And this is the Korean fried place, and I really like this Korean fried place, so I thought, okay, I'll just do a painting of it. You can see that in the reference I simplified in a way that it does look like a shop. When some people see this painting from far, it does look like a shop. The light is coming from the shop as well. And there's also a awning which is in the front. I also add that as well. So I'm adding the people there. And I covered all the midground and the foreground road with a lot of lighter colors. So now I want to bring a little bit of a reflection from the sky and the buildings on the road. So for that, I'm using a little bit of bluish color, and now this color I'm using burnt amber, Alizarin Crimson, whatever I can find. I'm going to do as dark as possible. Being said that, I'm also mixing a little bit of blue in that painting because the cloud is reflecting on the ground as well. So I'm keeping that in mind. I'm also doing that as well. So I'm focusing on the reflection on the right hand side. It's the same thing. I leave some lights peeking through on the road, and the rest I go as dark as possible to get that reflection and everything on the ground as well. So I'll keep building the pigment, and wherever the car sits or wherever people walking, I'll go even a little bit darker as well because they're also reflecting on the ground as well. For that, I'm using French Ultramarine Blue and a little bit of burnt amber, or else I use French Ultramarine Blue and a little bit of darker blue I have in my palette, and I don't know which color is it. And I'm just I'll keep doing this process till I'm happy with it. I'm making sure not to cover everything. So I took, as you can see, it is really hard to bring the lighter colors in watercolors, but whereas in gouache you could see I used the yellow color with the white paint in it, and it just, the light comes through. And in my palette, what I showed you guys earlier, you can see there's a white paint on bottom right. So I usually mix, if I want any lighter colors, I use that's white gouache from Winsor Newton. So I mix with it and I just bring that lighter value. And you can see this one I'm doing the exact same thing. I took the painting from my palette. I'm using a little bit of white gouache in it to get a little bit of lighter value in it. And you can see as soon as we added the lighter values, everything came alive. Now I'm focusing on the car, which is on the right hand side, who is sitting on the midground. In the reference there were two cars, but I simplified to one car because I don't want this scene to be too noisy. I want to read this pretty good with the light reflecting and the people walking on the road. So that's my motive from this painting, so I'm focusing on that. So there's also that blue signboard from the shop board also reflecting on the ground, so I added that. You could see this is what I mean by bringing back a little bit of lighter value. You could see I covered everything, the darker pigment in the foreground, but the sky is reflecting on the ground. So for that, I'm using the light pale blue, what I was saying, and I'm using a little bit of white paint in it, and I'm just like painting it out to get the skylight on the ground as well. So once I'm happy with it, I'm just focusing on the street lights, which is in the foreground, and there's also like a yellow signal lights. I'm also adding that as well. I always forget to add like signal lights, so I'm going to add the signal light using a green, light green, and a little bit of white paint in it, so that I can also make it reflecting on the ground as well. So I took a pure gouache white paint, and I'm writing the sign of that Korean barbecue, Korean fried chicken place, and I'm also added the street lines on the foreground as well. And our major figure, the person who is walking in the foreground, she lacked a little bit of form, so I'm going to adding a little bit of form to her because she's the one walking in the front. So I want to make sure that she reads properly than any other figure in our painting. For the car, I also want the car to bring to the foreground as well, so I'm doing that as. And this one, I want to make a little bit of lighter sky reflecting on the road, so I did that thing. And I hate doing this in my painting, going and fixing stuff. I don't like fuss with my painting, but this is required in our painting because that will help to frame the foreground a little bit better with the street lights and the telephone poles in the foreground. So I'm using a darker pigment, but before it dries out, I'm just putting some lights here and there, and I don't want to put a lot of details on the background because the whole painting is about the foreground and the light reflecting on the ground. And I was really happy at this point. At one point, as I said, I thought I lost the painting, I don't know what I'm doing, but eventually I persevered, and this is what I end up with. So I'll keep building up the lighter values now. Wherever I see lighter value, I'll squint my eyes and check like is there any other lighter value I can add that to. I also make up some of the stuff as I go because at this point I don't look at the reference. I want my painting to tell what else I can add in the painting. At any point in your painting, if you think what else you can add in your painting, that means you are done with your painting. And red is a really dominant color in any painting. It looks really good, and it also draws viewers' attention. So I also make sure to add that street light, the street light in the foreground, and I also want to make sure that it's reflecting on the ground as well. So I'm also adding a little bit of whiter value again, and I'm just keep building it. So now I also thought that the mid-ground lacked a little bit of value, so I'm fixing it. So now it's your turn. Take my drawing template and reference, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks again for watching this gouache evening tutorial with me, and let me know what you guys learned from this video and what's your favorite color in this painting. If you have any other questions or subjects you want me to cover in watercolors or gouache, let me know in the comments or write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. If you want to support me some other way, hit the super thanks button so I can make weekly videos like this for you guys and make really good content. And please do share with your friends and family, and good luck with your painting.